Good evening, 49er faithful. Here we are, Wednesday, September 20th, in the wee hours of the night, going live. Schuh, Randon McMahon, between two beards, breaking it down for tomorrow's game, Thursday night fucking football. Here we come. Randon, we got football in the middle of the week. I'm hyped. You're hyped. We didn't do a show last week. The energy has got to be real tonight. Good, sir.
If you think the Niners are going to pull off a W, can I get a hell yeah?
Yes,
hell yeah.
Sir.
Let's go, baby. No, I'm excited.
2-0 to start the season. Obviously coming off of that big win in LA for our first home game Thursday night. I mean, technically we kind of had a home game last weekend because we kind of had more fans than the Rams did at SoFi Stadium. But, you know, that's just what it is nowadays. Every time we go down there, we've got a good crew of Niner faithful. Speaking of a good crew of Niner faithful, we've got them here in the chat as well. Raphael 562 Niners coming in to say good evening to myself, to you, Randon, to the sneakerheads, and everybody. Reminding those folks to do the important things of liking and subscribing to the channel. Beast Mode Gaming, also a sneakerhead here on the channel, coming in just to be first. Hello. Good to see everybody. Smash that like button for us. We're getting into this thing straight off, Randon. I mean, we had a week off. We could talk about what we did, but I want to talk about the 49ers at this point. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah. Who cares what we're doing? Let's get to the team. Yeah.
Who cares? Indeed, no one is the answer to that question, sir. Concern with Nick Bosa. So far, the reigning defensive player of the year has been blanked through the first two games. Let me toss it over to you here first. Is this cause for concern?
I think the reason I brought this question up to you was because of a similar situation last year, right? Debo holds out, he comes in, gets a contract late to camp, and then he had a really bad season. Even himself said that it wasn't up to par. So is this the type of thing where, hey, Bosa hold out for his money? Are we concerned about that type of thing? I think a lot of fans are. Like, they were, throwing stuff out there that we overpaid Debo, crying about the contract. And now I've already seen people on social media saying, hey, we overpaid Bosa after 2 games of him being on the field. I think that I'm with Beast Mode Gaming, not a concern for me right now. If you look at the underlying metrics, and obviously everybody wants sacks. I want sacks too. Nick Bosa wants sacks. He said, hey, I'll trade you Drake Jackson on the sideline. I'll trade Drake Jackson for 3 sacks versus a tackle for loss, is what he told his teammate there. So I just think that I think that it's all the underlying measurables are there. You look at PFF, had him the top graded defenseman both weeks, but he's on the sideline sucking gas, like he's putting an oxygen tank on his face. You never really thought that would happen. He's one knee on the ground. He's not in game shape yet. He's in shape. He's not in game shape. And he's even said that to himself. But when he's on the field, he is being very valuable to this team.
Very valuable indeed. I got to take a moment to talk about another most valuable player right here, because I see this coming up in the chat, and it's got to get a huge shout out right here on the channel. My best friend Mark Hicks coming in to let me know that a shout out is required for my goddaughter Heidi. She's officially a teenager today. Also, go Steelers, Mark says. We're ignoring the last part of that statement. Heidi, if you're watching, happy birthday. That is ridiculous to me that you are a teenager. I mean, it just blows my mind. It's been too long. Absolutely got to get on the phone. I want to wish you that happy birthday in person. But if everyone on the channel, everyone in the chat, throw in some happy birthdays to Heidi. Randon, a happy birthday to Heidi here.
Yeah, happy birthday, Heidi, and hope you have better taste in football teams than your father.
I remember when Heidi was little and I would go over to watch football on Sundays. Obviously, Mark, diehard Steelers fan. I would sit there and teach her every time the Niners scored to go, touchdown, Niners. It bugged the shit out of Mark. It was ridiculous, but I loved it. It warmed my heart, and I will forever remember that. I will always remember little Heidi growing up, all of those moments. Man, it just is crazy how time flies. 13, that is nuts. Happy birthday from me. Happy birthday from Randon. Happy birthday from Raphael 5629ers coming in to say happy birthday. Beast Mode Gaming is in here to say happy birthday. Appreciate that from the chat. That's a big deal. Had to take that moment to say that. Very special. Back to the Bosa comment. I'm not concerned either, but I will call this out that Bosa deserves some grief. Honestly, I was going to say a different word until I realized that I was talking to Heidi just a moment ago. But Bosa deserves a hard time here, right? Kind of like the hard time that Debo got for holding out and having less than a stellar year. So to me, I think this is less so. Bosa is in better shape than Debo was when he came into camp after getting the deal done in his contract year. But Bosa has still cost himself a couple of weeks of being in top form. And when you're going from defensive player of the year, attempting to accrue, potentially the sack total that shatters the record for the Niners, you're headed for TJ Watt if you can. 2 games not in prime football shape is unacceptable. This defense still has every possibility of doing special things. Much more important for everyone to be in form at the end of the year than the beginning of the year. We've managed to win both games even without that production. So a lot of things trending in Nick Bosa's favor for not getting critiqued harder. Could you imagine if we had somehow managed to drop both games and he was held without a sack? People would be up in arms. So again, I'm not concerned about it. I believe Bosa will have himself a good year, but any more games with a 0 up there on the board, and it's hard to come back from that and be in contention for the sack leader for the year.
I think the sack leader is what we talked about last year. Is that's the way you win Defensive Player of the Year, but that's not what Nick Bosa is worried about. He's worried about the Super Bowl, and I think that you're looking at he was number 1 on the team in pressures. He's number 1 on the team in win rate. I think he's top 3 in the NFL in win rate. He's beating the guys off the block. He's just not finishing right now. And I think a lot of other people are finishing, and that's fine. What I have noticed, and I think a lot of other podcasters that I've been listening to have pointed it out, he doesn't have the repertoire of moves right now. I think he's relying a lot on the bull rush. And what I've come and looked at when I looked at a lot of the highlights that I've seen after watching the game, and I agree with that. He's not doing the typical repertoire of linking together that kind of stuff. And maybe he doesn't feel comfortable with it right now. And that could be something that is both concerning and amazing, right? If he's top 3, top 5 in win rate, and he's also top 1 in pressures, and he only has 1 move right now, can you be that concerned at this point?
No, you really can't. You can't. And he looks the part, right? When Debo came in, admittedly, as I make this comparison between the two, it's a marked difference. I mean, Debo did not look the part coming in. You could tell that he wasn't in the same level of conditioning as he had been the year prior when he set all of those personal bests. In this instance, he passes the eye test, right? So no, not terribly concerned, slightly disappointed. And that's worse. When my parents used to tell me that as a kid, that they were not mad. They were just disappointed. It hurt that much more. So Nick, I hope you're watching. I hope you don't lay any more goose eggs here.
Does he get a sack tomorrow?
Yes, I think he does. I think that he gets the mobile quarterback, Daniel Jones. I know mobile quarterbacks give us fits. I suspect that Daniel Jones will run for a handful of first downs tomorrow. It will frustrate the shit out of me. And I think he runs straight into the grasp of Nick Bosa on one of those dropbacks.
I like it.
Love it. Let's get on to another topic. The health of Brandon Aiyuk. That has a regal sound to that title. The health of Brandon Aiyuk. So to me, the question becomes, and John Lynch talked about this a little bit, is the season more important than Thursday against the Giants? And I think that answer is nuanced. You look at earning home field advantage last year, which we were unable to do against Philadelphia. Some of those games that we cost early, games that I was there to watch in person, Chicago, Atlanta, where you and I were there, dropping critical games that should have been easy wins. That's what this game sets up to be. The Giants are 1-1. They've shown themselves to be an up and down team, got blown out by Dallas, and then were down big to Arizona before mounting that comeback. They've got a lot of injuries. So you could say to yourself, well, Brandon could take this game off, rest up, and the season is more important. I believe Lynch when he says, hey, if he shouldn't play, we're not going to let him play. I know Brandon Aiyuk wants to play, and that's a true statement by Lynch. Because it's Brandon Aiyuk's contract year, dude wants to play 17 games and amass as many potential stats as he can to earn himself generational money. So I believe the team will hold him back if need be. I go back and forth on this. If he's healthy, you got to play him. This is one of those games that's important to pick up. You can't drop it like last year. Home field advantage absolutely matters. And so does the long-term health of the players. I haven't heard anything about this injury that leads me to believe it's something that will get significantly worse if he plays.
It's already been said it's pain tolerance at this point. And I think that if it's pain tolerance, he's out there. For me, it's a thing that I look at and it's like, oh, well, yeah, we could beat the Giants, but we were also supposed to beat the Rams by over 14 points. And that didn't happen. Right. A lot of people lost a lot of money taking the Rams in that bet. They won a lot of money and Vegas lost a lot. So I think you're looking at this in a situation is like, okay, this is not an injury that can be worsened by like a knee or an ankle or something like that. But you look at the quarterback documentary last year, Kirk Cousins had a rib injury like week 2 and it never healed because he kept getting hit and hit and hit.
Right.
And if Aiyuk takes a hit in the chest, is that going to make it worse again? But there's no broken bones. I just think that he will be out there just because another one of my favorite podcasts, the Kelsey New Heights with the Kelsey brothers, they were talking about, Jason was talking about the fact that, not Jason, but Travis was talking about the fact that him hyperextending his knee week 1 and him wanting to be out there with his teammates, him feeling like he was going to let his teammates down, him feeling like he wasn't able to contribute in a real way if he wasn't on the field. And I think that Brandon is probably going to feel the same way. Hey, I need to be out there. I need to be, if I can be out there, I will be out there.
Right.
Whether I play 30% of snaps or 40% of snaps, I really do think that he will be there. And it's a significant drop off, right? Like one, Brandon Aiyuk, like it's not his legs that are being affected. So he could still win routes. He can still move back and forth. Yeah, he'll feel pain in his chest, but it's going to be taking those hits. If he catches that ball, it's going to be taking those hits, right? So I do think that he'll play. I think he should play if he feels like he can survive the pain tolerance. I've never damaged or bruised my bones in my sternum before, but I think that he's a football player. This is what he's signing up for. I think he'll be out there. The question is how many snaps for me.
Yeah, and I love Bullpup 33, Sneakerhead here on the channel, coming in to say, hey, more snaps for Juwan Jennings. That is most likely true. We could see more snaps for Ray as well. Probably going to see that uptick. You do wonder, to your point, Randon, about it not being his legs. It is just the chest, not just the chest. It is the chest. I'm sure it's extremely painful. If he does play, tip of the cap to Brandon Aiyuk, no doubt. But if it is a pain tolerance thing, and if it is one that is only triggered by being hit, you wonder if he's out there running the routes, but used less frequently within the passing scheme, more of a decoy, hitting Debo, Kittle more frequently. Kittle's had some big primetime games, so perhaps it's more of a Kittle type of game, higher receptions. Maybe he gets into the end zone there. To me, again, I like what you bring up about, hey, if this becomes a lingering injury, then it is more substantial. It seemed to be one where every time he went down, it was in the hand that he predominantly carries the ball in after he's made the catch when he shifts to a single arm. And then every time he went down, that arm, that elbow and the ball hitting the ground first, creating that pressure on the shoulder, it seemed to aggravate it every single time. And so, again, I would openly wonder if there will be fewer targets his way, but still using him out there to draw coverage and really just, hitting him on a couple of shots throughout. It will be an interesting thing to watch going into it. He's having a stellar season so far, even with the lack of production. Last week, he has 11 receptions for 172 yards with a pair of touchdowns, both of those coming in week 1, though. If he does play, what's the over-under on catches for you with Brandon Aiyuk? If I put it at 4.5, you taking the over or the under?
Under.
I think that's fair. My guess would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 for 54, something like that.
I was thinking 3 for 35.
That seems reasonable. We're both so reasonable. Bullpup calls out, hey, he's a chest catcher. To be honest, I would pitch count him, keeping him out there for just a handful of snaps.
I think he's got some great hands. I don't know what people with the chest catcher. I mean, he just caught that touchdown, but like normally he's got some very good hands, I think.
I would put him up there with decent hands. I don't know that I could definitively say he is or is not a chest catcher. That's a term that I've not used before, but now I'm going to use quite frequently.
Like noodle arm?
Yes, like noodle arm. I was watching. I wanted so badly for a throw to connect where I'd just take that highlight and be like, see, Randon, it's not a noodle arm. And his overthrows on the 3 long balls didn't actually help there because you got to be accurate there to actually complete those long balls. Let's transition to another topic that is aggravating a lot of fans, and rightfully so. Week 1, I think much less so coming out of the Rams game, but talking about Christian McCaffrey's usage, obviously not making much use of the depth that we have in the running back room. You have Elijah Mitchell, who I've seen in fantasy football leagues getting dropped continually, and I am swooping that man up because I think Kyle Shanahan will come to his senses and distribute the rock a bit more. Matt Barrows points out that it's actually not Kyle Shanahan making those decisions, that it's the position coaches, Anthony Lynn, and how am I blanking on our best, Bobby Turner. God, that would have aggravated me to no end if I had forgotten Mr. Turner's name. My apologies, Bobby. That it actually lies with them, and points out that, hey, when you look at the end of the Rams game, you had a close fought game. You're down to, a 10-point difference. You don't want to put in a fresh back coming off of the bench and have them fumble. Christian McCaffrey is a very solid back in regards to that. So the end of the Rams game makes more sense. When you're talking about the Steelers game in the fourth quarter, when you're up big and you're still running with Christian McCaffrey, that one makes a hell of a lot less sense to me. How does this shake out for you? Are you concerned with the usage percentage? I think it's 23 touches, 25 touches between last week and the week prior. Is that concerning?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm doing the rough math here. What is that? 17 weeks at 21 per. So, I mean, you're talking about 350 rushes and multiple receptions. Like 400 touches is a lot. And you're saying people were less concerned about the Rams game. I was more concerned about the Rams game. Reason being is that Mitchell got 0 snaps. He didn't put a toe on the field, let alone got a rush. Like, this is asinine. Like, you're talking about, like, hey, the amount of that Christian McCaffrey runs through this offense and all this kind of stuff, I get it. Like the offense is built now through him versus any other player on this team. But Jordan Mason ran for 6 yards per clip for the most part.
Yeah, he was the closer last year.
Mitchell was like, what, 5.8? So, like, where are we missing this? Like, why doesn't other people get even like 5 carries?
Right.
If you're talking about 2 carries for Mason, 5 carries for Mitchell, that's 7. And McCaffrey's now at 15. Do we lose that game? I don't think we do. We definitely don't lose the Steelers game.
No.
So, like, where is this going on? Like, Shanahan's had a history of this, right? Like, Mitchell coming back from injury, he had a toe injury, he had a rib injury, he had a hand injury, he had a knee injury. He saw 35 attempts, 27 carries, and some receptions. Like, this is just crazy. And I don't know what it is. Like, him talking about, back to the Trey Lance days of like, I can't form an offense around multiple quarterbacks. Is it like I can't form an offense around multiple weapons now? Like, I have to have Debo was in the backfield more than an actual running back. Like, and I understand he's the wide back and all this kind of stuff like that, but to have Eli Mitchell have 0 snaps and no other running back saw the field. I mean, Jordan Mason was on special teams, but no other running back saw the field on offense is dumb. Sorry, Kyle Shanahan. It is dumb. Like, you need other running backs to spell him. I understand CMC's the GOAT, but you look at all the other running backs in this league. Nick Chubb may never play football again, right? Like, you look at Eckler out with an ankle injury. You look at other running backs out there. all out already, and it's week 2. And now you're going to put him out for almost 400 attempts on the season. It's not smart football.
Those are high figures when it comes to total rushing attempts. Ian Sharp coming in with the question.
Total attempts.
Yeah, total attempts. CMC playing too well to sit. There is something to that I believe Kyle Shanahan locks in on players. And I think he is fascinated, completely attached to the flexibility that Christian McCaffrey offers this offense in a level that the other running backs don't. And I understand that attachment. And that's also the reasoning why it's so important to have him around in January and not have burned him out in the regular season. So every game is important. Home field advantage is absolutely important, but the health of a player and sprinkling in others who can assist. You made the point of what those averages look like last year. It's not as if you are handing it over to a scrub. We looked at Elijah Mitchell prior to the Christian McCaffrey trade as someone that we were counting on to be more of the bell cow back last year, right? So
we both said that he was going to go over 1,000 yards rushing.
Right. To go from that to not even putting him out there on the field is aggravating on some level. If it continues, my concern right now is fairly low. It's there. I'm concerned about Christian McCaffrey and the usage. If it continues on this trend, each game it continues, my concern will grow. And not just for the fact of Christian McCaffrey's health, although that is a part of it, but it's twofold. It really is working those other backs into the rotation so that they can add value to the team because they are not scrubs, because they do add that value to the offense. You have to begin to put them in. To me, that absolutely should be a priority for the 49ers. You've got a short week. Christian McCaffrey coming off, I believe it was 25 rushes in this past game, and absolutely, or 25 touches.
22.
You want to
rushes.
Truncate that. You want to get Elijah Mitchell involved in this one, and if you get up big, you want to have Jordan Mason in there closing it.
Yeah, to me, my concern level is a 7. It's high because there's no way that CMC does not get injured with this workload the entire year. So, and if this team is not, how do I put this? This team is more important in January than it is now. There's no reason for the Steelers game that CMC wasn't pulled in the third quarter.
I agree with that statement.
There's just not. So, sit him out. I know he doesn't want to sit out. I know he'll be out there all the time. You're telling me there's not one intelligent mind between the running back coaches and Kyle Shanahan to say, hey, maybe we have the best player in the fucking NFL to pull him when we're up big? Get out of here with that.
Let me correct that in that there are 3 intelligent minds between Anthony Lynn, Bobby Turner, and Kyle Shanahan. However, they may not be all that prudent, right? They may not understand the conservative nature of preserving this wonderful new toy that your offense has so that it is there for that time of year that you're speaking about.
Anthony Lynn, he knew what it was all about, right? He had Eckler. He understands what a dynamic back that could be.
Yes,
Bobby Turner's been around before I was even born. Great in running backs. There's intelligent people in that organization. There's no excuse that seems relevant to me that he was playing in the fourth quarter of that game against the Steelers, let alone having Eli Mitchell have 0 snaps on the field against the Rams.
Yeah, that's the part that really is just pretty ridiculous when you look at it. I mean, yeah, it was.
Does CMC not drink water or have a Gatorade? Like get little puff, like a little something.
Little breather. 23 touches, 20 carries, 3 receptions in the Rams game. I would hope that we see sub 20 touches for Christian McCaffrey on Thursday night. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. My guess is that we're looking at another 20-touch game. And not that that's the end of the world, but that's a high usage over the course of a year.
Yeah, I hope we blow them out and then Juszczyk earns his $8 million and gets some rushing attempts.
We don't see very many catches or runs from Juice because
Has Juice touched the football
Christian McCaffrey
this year?
What's that?
Has Juice touched the football this year?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, the worst $8 million spent in the NFL. Sorry, Juice.
Dave's dude coming in with the question, Rob Schuh, how many Niners games, if any, do you plan on attending this season? In season, I am looking at 2, maybe a third. Going to be going to Seattle and one other road game. And then every playoff game that we go to. So that should be 1, 2, 3, because I'm counting on a bye in there. So make that 5 games this year, 3 of them being postseason, 2 at Levi's. And then where's the Super Bowl this year? Because I will be there when we make it. Ian making the prediction, hey, it's Juice and Jennings week. By the way, Mark coming in. I love it. Rob, congrats on the win over the Steelers. Niners have a lot of momentum with these 2 wins going into tomorrow. Who do you see as your biggest threat in your division? That's a great question because it seemed clear-cut that it was Seattle coming into this season. After watching them for 2 games, I'm not super convinced. I still see the Rams as a team that, hey, you got Stafford on one side of the ball, Aaron Donald on the other. A lot of people predicted them to be in the bottom quarter of the league. I see that as like an 8-9 team. Just having Stafford out there, I looked at his stats over the course of his career. He was on some bad Detroit Lions teams. His stats are essentially an 8-9 season over the course of it. Obviously, a lot of those years were during 16-game seasons. But I will say the Rams are better than most predicted. I still think it's the Seahawks. I had them penciled in at 10-7, scraping by into the playoffs. I still think that's a viable prediction. Randon, do anyone give the Niners a run for their money in the division?
I mean, I think Seattle's still the team there. I think you look at how important a quarterback and a coach melding together is, and with the Rams, right?
Yeah.
So the Rams have nobody. Like half their roster probably have never played football, and they're just like computer animated people. Like that's that's what's going on there. And then you have Puka Nacua, who is setting records, and it just like 20 targets for a guy that you've never even heard of. Like absolutely ridiculous.
Let me comment on that because that was a little embarrassing when it is an ex-Niner who holds the record for most catches in their rookie season through the first 2 games, and then you are the team that allows Nacua to blow through that record. That was a little embarrassing. Like, how did the defense not have Earl Cooper's back on that one? It just is unacceptable.
All I know is that Puka Nacua is my favorite name to say in the NFL right now. So,
favorite. Thomas B. Coming in, I'll be attending the game in Minnesota. That's a fantastic stadium. Just want to call that out. Dope stadium, dope city. Get some cheese curds while you're there. Very good destination.
If you need some good breweries, I can hit me up.
Randon knows the booze. Gabe Stiver says, Rob, in Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, indeed. Hey, you says, I said Kyle has CMC on his fantasy team. That might explain CMC's usage. Kyle's in 10 fantasy leagues. He drafted CMC first in every single one of them. And now he's got to win.
Hey,
Tommy Huxley is celebrating.
Kind of power, I'd be wielding it.
Tommy Huxley celebrating 10 months as a sneakerhead here on the channel. Tommy, good to see you, sir. Good to see you indeed. On the topic of the Seahawks, Bullpop saying, in Geno we trust, not too worried about the Sea Chickens. I thought there'd be some regression to the mean from Geno Smith. So far, that seems to be the case this season.
But Kenneth Walker looks good.
Kenneth Walker looks pretty elite.
Tyler Lockett, 2 touchdowns last week.
Yeah, can't go wrong with Tyler.
Smith and Jigma, obviously rookie wide receiver. Everybody was dropping Justin Jefferson after 2 weeks last year, and look what his rookie season turned out to be. So Smith and Jigma can get there. You look at Metcalf, left the game injured a little bit, so we'll see how that works out. So, I mean, I'm not worried about the Seahawks in the aspect of them beating us for the division, but they're not out of this race at all.
They are not. I definitely think they are primed for a playoff spot at the bottom of the NFC. All right, let's talk about quarterback because we got to talk about quarterback. Purdy and the tale of 2 games. Did you see a big difference in between the performance against Pittsburgh versus what we saw against the Rams last weekend?
Yeah, I did. I mean, the Rams, he missed a lot of deep passes, right?
Yes, he did.
And we could have won that game 50 to whatever if he hit all 3 of those. If he hit one of those, this game's not even close. So I know I bust a lot of people's chops, calling him a noodle arm and all this kind of stuff. He doesn't have a great arm. Not a great deep ball passer. He has moxie. He's able to hit all that stuff from 20 yards below. And even time in week 1, right? Everybody's like, oh, he had a great game. Didn't complete one pass over 20 yards. So 20 yards in the air. So like I'm just saying, like he doesn't have that in his repertoire. That's not what he's going to be. He is Jimmy Garoppolo with legs and moxie. That's what he is. Yeah. And everybody was doubting him or wanted Jimmy out of here. And I'm not doubting Purdy. I like Purdy. I like what he brings to the table. I think you need a set of huevos to play in this league, and that's what it is. But he can't hit that on a dime. Now, I'm not saying every big arm thrower has his day, and that's the end all be all, because we saw Josh Allen throw 4 picks week 1. Right. So it is what it is. I'm just saying when he needs to make that throw, Brock Purdy can't make that throw. And so
he certainly doesn't hit it consistently.
He saw it 3 times in week 2 when we could have put the game out of reach, and he couldn't do it. Now he took ownership of it and he said, I'll be better and all that kind of stuff like that. Glad to see that from a young guy taking ownership of his mistakes. But what I'm telling you this way, I think that Brock Purdy is the right quarterback for this offense, but we are not any different than we were with Jimmy Garoppolo, other than the fact that the mindset is completely different than Brock Purdy. Will that be enough to take us to the next level?
That and the idea that we're paying him as Mr. Irrelevant, which is a big help to the roster building aspect of it. But I think it is fair to make that comparison. Whether or not Purdy has a healthier career over Jimmy Garoppolo remains to be seen, obviously. But I think the comparison of what they do is a fair one. And to me, it wasn't a question with Jimmy Garoppolo. His style of play often led to 49ers wins. It was paired with an elite defense, no doubt about it. But Brock Purdy is paired with an elite defense as well. I would say that I don't see as many head-scratching throws from Brock as I did from Jimmy Garoppolo just in that comparison. But it is fair to point out that last year there were a couple of balls that were dropped by defenders that could have otherwise been interceptions, would have brought his touchdown to interception ratio up a little bit. I would expect him to continue progressing within this offense. It felt as though our old man Jimmy hit a ceiling at some point, that his gunslinger mentality that showed up in his first 5 games in 2017 really couldn't be showcased within Kyle Shanahan's offense. I think Purdy is pretty custom built to fit right into Shanahan's offense, operate it without issue. I do believe that we'll continue to see him grow. But to the question of 2 different games, I thought it was fairly similar. I agree and disagree with you. I agree with you that the critical takeaway for me were those 3 deep ball misses versus the Rams, all overthrown with that noodle arm of his. And it is, in fact, painful to watch that because they could have sealed the victory. And had the Rams gotten back into it, you would have pointed to those as the key moments in the game. I do enjoy seeing him take ownership of that. But when I look at the rest of it, he comes out of the Steeler games throwing for 220 yards, comes out of the Rams game throwing for 200. He had a 65 completion percentage week 1, slightly up to somewhere around 68% in week 2. The drop off in QBR goes from 94 in week 1 to 74 in week 2 because of the fact that he is missing those 2 TD passes that he threw week 1, 0 touchdowns against the Rams. And he's 0 for 3 in passes that probably would have been 6 all the way around. At least a couple of those 3 would have been for 6. I see a quarterback again who fits well within this offense. We're going to talk about the high output of it in just a moment, but I'm going to celebrate Lester San Jose, the skeptic tank, who is celebrating 12 months. That's right, 1 year. Comes in with a statement, says Giants victory due to their being better. Arizona is bad. So we will play the Giants next, and then we play Arizona. So we will get a taste for just how good both of these teams are. And I will say, coming up against the Giants, I think that we are a far better roster, a far better team. That said, it is Thursday night football, short week. The Giants, yes, are an East Coast team traveling over, but they stayed in Arizona after the game. So they're used to the time zone. They're not flying very far. This one has one of those, it could be closer than you feel type of things. I know I said that about the Rams. We ended up beating them by 7. Sean McVay pissing off everyone by covering the spread. I thought that was fantastic to kick the field goal with just 4 seconds left. Yes, I think Arizona is bad. Giants are better. I still think that we should be able to handle New York. Just saying as we get through that comment.
Either.
All right, Dave's dude is talking to you, Randon. He says, Randon, at least with Purdy, us fans are not constantly wondering whether every throw will result in a bonehead interception. To my point of those crazy throws. What say you, Randon?
That's a Shanahan thing. That's all the timing rounds, right? Like if you are a defensive player and you read the concept, like most of the time you want to, in the Shanahan offense, you want to snap the ball, get the first read out because Shanahan is trying to scheme open the first read. I just think that, Garoppolo had a lot of bad interceptions, but you're looking at, I'm looking at it this way. Look, you look at the stat line. Yeah, Purdy has done great. I'm not knocking Purdy as he's a bad quarterback or he's not the right quarterback or whatever, but you're looking at his offensive stats. He's had one game over 300 yards passing. Like he hasn't really carried a team in the fact that like, hey, we need you to come back and we need to throw the rock 50 times a game and do that kind of stuff. He's just not that guy. He's had one game over 300 yards. So
he hasn't really had the necessity to be that guy yet. He's had the run game to lean on.
No, 100% correct. Now, he's had some timely touchdowns. He's had some timely first downs.
Yep, very clutch.
But doesn't that sound like Jimmy Garoppolo to you? Like timely first downs? He's one of the best first down players. He has a lot. The Niners were number 1 in red zone percentage under Jimmy Garoppolo. Like
I was just telling the story of the Saints game in 2019 to someone who was unfamiliar with it, of throwing to George Kittle on that 4th down to pick up the first down for Robbie Gould to kick the game winner on that drive. Yeah, Jimmy had that knack for picking up those firsts.
So I just don't think that Purdy doesn't have the skill set to just throw for 500. Like he just doesn't have that. But does he need to have that with the Niners? And I don't think he does. But when there's time, when you need a skill set, when you need it, like we were talking about arm strength, you don't need it until you need it. And you don't need it until you need it when you need it. So like 0 for 3 on deep balls, his accuracy wasn't there. The arm strength went there. He had to step into all those throws. It's not like he can just flick that for 40 yards. Like it just my thing. In the first week, he didn't have one completion over 20 yards. So I'm not saying that he's a bad quarterback. All I'm saying is
that's an important distinction. That you are not, I've heard you before, you are a fan of Brock Purdy.
I love Brock Purdy. Yeah, throwing the in the veins, the moxie, all that kind of stuff. The fact that the first game when he ran for the first down, he pointed and smiled at the camera. Love all that kind of stuff. I just realistic with his limitations of what he does. Will he be a successful quarterback? Yes. I think he will.
I think so.
For this team. Will he be what the quarterback that this team needs? Sure, I think they should have gave Trey Lance more opportunity. We already talked about that. Tired of talking about that. I do think that he's the right quarterback. What? Contract. He's doing enough for the offense. He's the type of quarterback that Shanahan wants. They can pay everybody else on this team. I think that he's the right person for the job, but doesn't mean he's not above reproach. And I think that he had some mistakes.
I agree with the not above reproach. I agree that he had mistakes. I do think Thomas B., while he may exaggerate it more than I would, has some points here about the idea of, hey, you got to be careful drawing too much of a narrative based on one game. I'm adding that too much because he just says drawing narratives based on one game. I think you can draw some narratives from one game, but you can't go too deep with it. Purdy was 2 of 5 on deep throws in the Rams game. I'd need to check that because on the deep throws, he was 0 for 3, no doubt about it. But I agree on this. The definitive statement of Purdy can't hit those throws is not something I agree with. That he can, he just has not consistently hit those throws. I would like to see a lack of training camp could absolutely contribute to that. I will be continuing to monitor this myself as the season goes on. I think it is not crazy, however, to call out that he's not a gunslinger, right? I just don't think that's who he is. I don't think he's who he's trying to be. And therefore, I do not believe that's a crazy thing to say.
I do think he's a gunslinger. I just don't think he has a gun.
He has the mentality. just not the arm, according
No, I mean, and there's nothing wrong, right? Brett Favre is the ultimate gunslinger.
Yeah.
When he retired, he led the history of the NFL in interceptions. But would anybody say Brett Favre's not a good quarterback? No, they wouldn't. So, like, and I'm not saying he's turning the ball over. I'm just saying that how are those bombs for Josh Allen? I mean, didn't he throw for 30-something touchdowns and led the team to multiple playoff berths and all that kind of stuff like that? I mean, it's one game. Yeah, it's one game, but it's something that confirms what we're talking about here, that Purdy does not have an arm. And I all you Purdy stands out there,
does not have an arm or does not have a big arm? That's an important clarification.
He has a physical arm because he did throw some footballs.
He does. He does have an arm,
but he's not a powerful thrower of the football. And I don't understand, Rob. I have zero inclination why people can't understand this. He's not a powerful thrower, and why is that a bad thing? I mean, he doesn't have that in his tool basket. Like, it just is what it is. You don't have hair. I'm starting not to have hair. I have a big belly. Like, people have defaults in their lives. Like, it is what it is. Like, Purdy can't throw the ball deep all the time. Will he be a good quarterback? Yes, he probably can.
Indeed. I'm here with Rambo on that one. That was a good rant. That was a good random rant. I will take it and not even have anything to retort against that. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the offense. Hey, will the Niners continue to average 30-plus points per game? 30 in each of the first two contests this season, 30-plus last season in the games that he started and finished. This offense, when you add Christian McCaffrey and a quality point guard that can dish the ball like John Stockton, much like Brock Purdy is doing, this offense tends to function at a high level. You have amazing stars all around. Obviously, Debo and Brandon Aiyuk out wide, George Kittle at tight end, Christian McCaffrey as your running back. The list goes on with stars on that offensive side of the ball. Purdy seems like the right guy to continue dishing it out to those. To your point, not necessarily going to be a lot of deep shots, but hey, if you're going to complete at a high percentage over the middle in those intermediate throws, he continues to impress me with the accuracy on those very short throws that are so easy, but you just would see some of our other quarterbacks missing them. Several other quarterbacks. I'm not singling anyone out in that regard. That accuracy, that ability to make the reads, to adjust at the line of scrimmage, this offense finally feels like it has unlocked for Kyle Shanahan. The question I have is, does that door close at any point? Do defenses catch up to this? Or should we expect to see a fairly productive offense going forward that can keep it around that 30-point range?
I think we can. I think the offense can be expected to have an output that high. What I want to say, though, is, like, wouldn't we rather have the Super Bowl against Kansas City with that deep ball to Sanders? Like, there's got to be other tools to the shed here. Ultimately, I think that you can run a high output, right? Purdy had his worst game. If this is his worst game, I'll sign up for it every day of the week, because Purdy looked great for the most part.
Yes.
Didn't have any touchdowns, couldn't hit the deep throws, but he wasn't bad, and he took responsibility for what he did. All I'm saying is that this offense is predicated around what? Oh my God, you want to think of deep ball throwers or all this kind of stuff like that?
Yeah, no, this is just a Jim Drunkenmiller
no,
reference.
It's a jab. It's a jab at what I was saying. It's all right. That's fine. But I think the offense is a well-oiled machine right now. I really do think it is. You have Aiyuk, who's a route statesman. You have Kittle that can do whatever he wants to do. You have CMC, who is a cog among cogs, and you have Debo, who's getting back into what's going on. Like, this team cannot function at a higher level sometimes, and all you need is a facilitator. I just wish that facilitator could make the throw if he was asked to make the throw, which that is three throws out of what he made. I don't have the stats up right now. But 25, whatever. It's less than 10%. So it's not a big deal until it is a big deal.
Yeah, 25 attempts.
Right? So it's not a big deal until it is a big deal. It's not a big deal until it is a big deal with Super Bowl. Right? You wanted Jimmy Garoppolo to make one throw, and he couldn't make the throw. If we lost the game to the Rams, let's throw this out there to you. If we lost the game to the Rams and Purdy had 3 opportunities to hit some people deep, wide open for touchdowns, would this be a different argument?
I would be highly frustrated. I would be criticizing in the way that I am now, but no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't then turn that into a reason to downplay Purdy's other abilities. When I look at the total picture of Brock Purdy, I look at one of the picture-perfect players to be quarterback within Kyle Shanahan's offense. Now, would it be fantastic if on top of everything else that he did, he also had a phenomenal arm that he was hitting a significantly higher percentage of the deep throws, was more confident in making those? Yeah, absolutely. But if I'm taking the trade-off, if I'm looking at what we need within this offense, I would much rather have the skill set that Brock Purdy has than the big arm of any other quarterback because of the system that he plays within, because of the skill position players that surround him. I believe that he matches up well to the offense itself. I do think that we continue to see this offense averaging 30 points over the course of the season. This is going to be an elite unit.
100%. Hey, Rob, can you throw up Jimmy J's comment there? I want to commend him. He's going to the game tomorrow night, taking his son to his first Niners game.
Yes.
Get that fandom going. Cheers to your son there for witnessing some good football. Appreciate that.
Jimmy J, sneakerhead here on the channel. Cheers to that. Absolutely love it. I'll tell you, my love of the 49ers comes from the simple fact that my father started taking me to Niners games. And it was all about the fact that, hey, when you're a kid, sometimes you don't get 4 hours uninterrupted with your dad. That's the coolest shit ever, Jimmy J, to take your child to the game. Speaking of taking children to the game, I had the privilege of taking Heidi and Mark to a game in Levi Stadium where the Niners, unfortunately for him and Heidi, crushed the Steelers that day. But they got down on the field passes. They talked to Ryan Shazier. Like, it was the coolest experience. I'm sure Heidi remembers that. I know it's a big memory for Mark. For me, looking at that time with my dad, so special. I'm with Randon, Jimmy J. I'm glad that he called this comment out. I hadn't seen it to that point, and I do want to take that moment to say that's fucking cool. And I hope that you guys have a phenomenal time and that the game is a good one where we smash the Giants, but it's still entertaining, even though it's somewhat of a blowout.
Get that dub and have some memories, man.
Get that dub. Martin says, what are you drinking, Rob? Coffees? No, I am all about the water. Thank you very much. Trying to preserve the voice, let me say. Okay. Here we go. Jimmy J says, and that's where I got my love for the team, Rob. My dad. That's what I'm talking about, Jimmy. That's where it's all about. It is that quality time. It is that. That is something.
Let's go on a diversion here a little bit.
Let's do it.
I think this game or any game is about preserving memories or in creating memories and what it means to you and all this kind of stuff. I really watched. And a lot of fans might get on me for this, but I watched the Kelsey documentary the other day. By the way, now Jason Kelly is my favorite player outside of the Niners in national football. I know he's an Eagle, but he's just him being a dad, him having daughters, him going to the game, him having a wife. Like, really that backlit into what football is all about. And that really stems from his relationship with his brother and his dad and how they made sports relevant in their life and how that can bring a family together, how that can bring relationships together, how that can bring the one-on-one with a father and son. And I just think that sports are very underrated in the undertone of what we all like to do with the betting and the calling out and the Super Bowls and all this kind of stuff. The undertone is relationships that are being made. And man, I just love the camaraderie that sports brings to people, and I think it's just a very underrated part of sports that most people realize, but I think we often forget how that affects us.
It's so true. I mean, you get sort of that negativity associated with fandom of big sports. And don't get me wrong, there is that. When I went to Philly, I've never been treated as poorly as a human being as I was treated in Philadelphia. I have a strong disdain for the people of Philadelphia because of the way that I was treated. So that is real. That side of the sport of being a fan is real, and it deserves criticism. And there is that special nature of being a fan. There really is that, I don't know, that shared experience. When you are in a crowd of 65,000 plus people as the home team and something big happens and that crowd erupts, I can tell you it distinctly in my mind, that Saints game in 2011 in the playoffs where we went ahead, Alex Smith on the end around, then they come back down, Jimmy Graham scores the touchdown, and it looks like we're going to lose. You go from the highest high to the lowest low. I remember being at that high, and then the crushing touchdown, looking over at my dad, that sinking feeling, my brother, my dad, and I there, it seemed as if we would lose. And then when we came back with the touchdown to Vernon Davis to seal that one, the look on my father's face, I thought he was going to pass out. I mean, it was just so special. That moment, you feel the crowd surge through your body. You get shivers down your spine. It's an experience that if you haven't felt it yourself, if you say to yourself, wow, it's just too good to sit at home and watch on the big screen, man, there is something. When I sit in the stadium and I hear the Star Spangled Banner, I'm not the most patriotic person. I'm a patriot, but I get chills. It's because of the memory of what football means to me. And that song in that stadium reminds me of what's about to unfold in front of me. And man, it just really is something else. Bullpup saying, hey, sports bring people together. It brought me closer to my parents in their old age. I will always treasure the Sundays we had together watching the Niners play. I'll always remember the game with Mark. He says, really crushed the Steelers. Watch your mouth. I mean, we could go back and look at the tape. We might have to. But yeah, that was the game. I think we won it in the end. That was Dante Pettis in the end zone. It was not a crushing, but we did win it with 5 turnovers in that game.
If you don't matter if you win by an inch or by a mile, winning is winning.
That's a W is a W, baby. Man, it is not always sunny in Philadelphia, Ian. It is always shitty in Philadelphia with shitty people. I'm taking it out on Philly. I will harbor that resentment until we crush the spirit of the Eagles rightfully. Okay, let's move this thing on. Hey, defensive backs shuffling the deck. We're seeing a little bit of an injury coming up for Ambry Thomas out of the last game. Did see Josina Anderson talking about the fact that he is expected to play. So that's positive news. But you certainly have had some rotation at the nickel cornerback spot, although it looks like that will be set going into Thursday. Up and down play from Lenore. We've elevated someone from the practice squad. We've signed a veteran off the street that quite honestly seems a little bit like the Dre Kirkpatrick signing of years past, the Josh Norman signing. I mean, we're talking about a veteran cornerback. What's your take on the DB room? Any concerns there? Where are the bright lights for us to focus on as the positives?
Zero concern on Lenore. He's just being asked to play what he can play to help the team, right? Like the fact that he was asked to play interior is a more of effect of what Isaiah Oliver had to offer in camp. Then you're looking at Ambry Thomas coming up in camp, killing it, right? I'm facing Kittle in my fantasy team this week, so hopefully it all goes to Debo. But no, I mean, you look at Ambry Thomas killing it in camp, dominating, and then every single game started off shaky, and then got injured, or shaky and then got pulled. And so, like, he's not really, like, completing games at this point. Oliver had a good second game, not a great first game. Lenore's playing whatever he can play to help the team out. Charvarius Ward looking great. So, like, but the team opposite of that really hasn't been complete. And we're just shuffling the deck over and over again to find some cohesive unit. And I think it's puzzling for me. I mean, 20 targets to a rookie and he had 15 receptions. That's, even though we lost the game, that's a big negative for me. Like, I don't care. I don't care how you look at it. Like, we're not making adjustments. Like, no cornerbacks are doing anything different. I know that Lenore got a pick late in the game, but like, I get the strategy of like sitting back and playing 10 yards deep and making tackles. I get that strategy, but we're not making zero adjustments. Like, he set the record for targets and receptions in the first 2 weeks. I understand
the record that a Niner held as far as most receptions through 2 games as a rookie. Like, you got to defend your own records.
You're more upset about that than I am, but I was saying, like, I'm just in the game. Like, literally, I was watching the game. I was sitting with my friend who has Puka Nacua on his fantasy roster, and I'm like, dude, another catch, another catch, another catch, another target, another catch. Like 20 targets? Like, Purdy threw the ball, 30 times? Like, that would have been 75% of his targets, right? Or 60%. Like, it's just ridiculous. The amount of, like, you're not making adjustments. Like, nobody is doing anything different. Nobody's stepping up to the table. In that side of the field, sorry, you're like ready to make a point,
No, please,
that side of the field,
keep going.
Somebody needs to make a point. Everybody's like, oh, there's picks. But yeah, Lenore made an adjustment later in the game and he got a pick. He played man, he made brand press, made a pick, great. Oliver's interception was an opportunity interception. It was deflected and all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying, like, where can we depend on that side? Like, where can we depend on that? That side is open right now for availability because Oliver hasn't had consistent season. Lenore has been trying to piece it together wherever they're asking to play. And Ambry Thomas is doing nothing. Do we really think that we can dominate as a number 1 defense again without a solidified side on that field?
If they continue to play as they have to this point, I'm with you on that. I will say to Dom 49's comment here, they played more man-to-man in the second half. They did make some adjustments. It took longer than I would have liked. It was really painful to watch them continue to play off. But I thought that was more of a question around scheme than around talent. I agree that certainly we have had inconsistency, but when you have a new defensive backs coach coming in as a defensive coordinator, it's not incredibly surprising to me that it takes a little while to catch up. So I'm going to hold out hope that this unit continues to come together now that, you go into it and you hope that you have a little more solidity at the nickel position because it seemed to click for Isaiah Oliver. And my hope is that from game 1 to game 2 was that moment. And what we see going forward is that higher level of play. Ambry Thomas, I liked what I saw from him in preseason. I thought he had come back and really was going to have a resurgent season. So far, that has not shown up on the field, but I'm not giving up hope there. To me, the only way in which I get super concerned about this defensive backfield is if we start to see more and more injuries. We do get Darrell Luter back in week 5, week 6, so we get some reinforcements, but it could be a thin unit if we get a couple of those injuries, and that's where I'd begin to be concerned. With the Rams game, I thought it was more of a scheme question than it was talent. And you have to ask yourself, how bad would that have been if you had Cooper Kupp out there opposite of Nacua, right? That would have been a disaster. I don't know that we would have won that game.
He looked like Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp goes for over 100 every single time he plays us. So my thing is this. Let me throw this back to you in a different aspect. Maybe we all love Charvarius Ward. He was one of my favorite signings that the team has ever made. Will the Niners ever make a schematic adjustment to, like, is he a lockdown corner to where if he has to follow that receiver across the field, he's able to? And I don't think the Niners will ever make that adjustment. I don't think and I get it. Cooper Kupp's a slot wide receiver. Charvarius Ward's outside, all this kind of stuff. You want to make those adjustments. So whatsoever. When the game is on the line, is Charvarius Ward going to body Puka? Is he going to get on the line and body somebody? And I don't think that, and I'm not saying he can't do that because I think he can. He's a great man corner. But is the schematic going to allow it? And I don't think it has for the Niners in Shanahan's tenure. And it hasn't so far this season. And that puzzles me because the fact that they should be able to put, now that they have a lockdown number 1, and they're not using them in that facet.
That is the frustrating part. It is just aggravating to watch to Jocelyn's point here, the lack of adjustments. just relying on that scheme to begin working at some point when it so blatantly is not. That was frustrating to me. All right, let's talk a little bit about this Giants game here coming up. Barkley is out. Matt Breida makes his return to Levi's Stadium with Saquon Barkley out, one of the biggest weapons, quite blatantly, quite obviously, for the New York Giants. Do you think that Matt Breida has himself a game against San Francisco, or are we able to contain the run game minus Daniel Jones leaking out for those occasional first downs?
The worst revenge tour ever. I think this might be. No, I'm just kidding. I think he's just going to be there. I mean, he's always got the speed to break a 90-yard run. So mistake here, misassignment there. Yeah, he can house one. I just don't think this is close. Like Saquon is. You could make a case for top 1, top 2 back in the league. Like he's that guy. So you take him out, and then the only weapon they have in the receiving game is Darren Waller. So like, where is this coming from? You're gonna have leaks out on Daniel Jones. You're gonna have Darren Waller. Like Breida's gonna play a function, but I just don't think it's not a revenge tour for him. I don't expect him to get 20 carries and for 170. He might get 15 and take one to the house because his speed is ridiculous. But
cheetah
revenge tour, not really looking for that there. I think he's just hoping to make a game check at this point.
I'm not seeing it. I think if we get gashed in the run game, it will be Daniel Jones getting out on a scramble. We have suffered with mobile quarterbacks. I think that the focus will be on shutting down the run, forcing Daniel Jones to drop back and pass. I see this as a good matchup for our defense. I think that this one has the potential, even though it's a Thursday night game. Those are typically lower scoring affairs. You often see ugly football on Thursday nights. I lean towards the Niners actually putting a lot on paper here and really handing it to the Giants here. I do want to bring in, I missed it earlier, but Mark Hicks coming back in to say, hey, we were together when Heidi was able to walk on the field and get Kerry Rice's autograph. That's Jerry Rice's distant cousin, Kerry there. No, it was Jerry Rice. I have a picture of that. Heidi getting that autograph. Again, happy birthday to Heidi. I agree. Priceless memories. That is what football is all about. Okay, so Breida's not having his revenge game. Giants have a ton of injuries, 2 of which are on the left side of the offensive line. The Giants are missing their starting left tackle and left guard. Andrew Thomas is out with a hamstring, and Ben Bredeson is out with a concussion. I was listening to Jack Hammer's program earlier tonight, big fan of Jack's, and he pointed out that both of them missed most of the game against Arizona, quoted the fact that there were just 7 pressures allowed by them combined within that game. And so, you're talking about the starters being out, but you have a couple of backups that have proven themselves to be capable. Can the Niners take advantage of that? Will we see Nick Bosa on the right side of the defense lining up against that left tackle, left guard, trying to take advantage of those youngsters? And is he able to? Is the Niners defensive line able to abuse the Giants because of those injuries? Saquon Barkley out, 2 starting left linemen out as well.
Did it seem like every time last year that an offensive line was banged up, we always call for a big night, and it never happened?
It never happened last year. Like, we literally never took advantage of it.
It was so crazy. Like every time we talk about, like first one was the Packers. Like what was it, week 2 or 3? It was like, they're all banged up. Nick Bosa is gonna have like 17 sacks tonight, all this kind of stuff. And we had like 1 pressure. Like it was just weird. I think it's gonna be another weird night. I think the defense is gonna play fine. You got Daniel Jones, who's a scrambler. They're gonna do design runs for him. I think they're gonna try to get him out of space. I think they're gonna try to do a lot of off script stuff. I don't think he's just gonna sit in the pocket and just wait for pressure to come. So I do expect Nick Bosa, because he's athletic, to get at least a sack. But for the team, I just think it's just going to be a weird night to where they're going to try to get in space. They're going to try to make a lot of things work. He's just not going to drop back and like sling the rock. That's just not Daniel Jones to begin with. Right. And now that they don't have Saquon, I think that they're going to try to make a lot of things happen on the run, and which is not advantageous, just racking up sacks.
And you are looking at the fact that, hey, the Giants are going to be running more of the read option, something that we really struggled against in preseason. You have a short week going in to prepare, so not a lot of time to practice against the read option. Daniel Jones, dangerous with the legs. I do think, again, that we get gashed by Jones. I also don't think that it ends up costing us on that one. Lester saying, hey, Rob, Randon, thoughts on Bosa getting into game shape? Think he'll wake up Thursday night? I have predicted Bosa gets a sack on Thursday. Randon, do you echo that sentiment, or are you on the fence about Bosa hitting that first sack lunch?
Yeah, he's got to dip his toe into the pool and get a sack. I think game shape is another aspect, right? He's got to play a lot of snaps there, 80% of snaps, which he normally does, which is not going to happen tomorrow night. But I think he does get on the scoreboard there with a sackaroonie, as they say.
Pressure has to get home. Pressure will get home with the sackaroonie. I am with you on that one. All right, injuries abound for the Giants. Which Giants team shows up at Levi's? You got the Giants who showed up for week 1 and just got destroyed by Dallas. Now, I think Dallas has a good defense. They have a solid team. 40-0, I think, is more of a statement of how ill-prepared New York was and not a statement of how dominant Dallas is. You also have the fact that they fell down early to a lowly Cardinals team. So are they that version of the Giants, or are they the team that then turns it around, has one of the largest franchise comebacks, the largest comebacks in franchise history to win over Arizona after allowing them to get up big? It's a short week. Giants stayed in Arizona for that. So how does this one play out? Which Giants team do you expect to see? The lowlier version or the competitive one?
I don't think there was a competitive one, to be honest with you. Arizona is supposed to get the number 1 and the number 2 overall pick. So the fact you beat the worst team in football and came back on that, you shouldn't have been down to begin with.
Right. That's the key there.
So then also you're like talking about, did they get, was that more indication of them or the Cowboys? Cowboys look good. I'm here in Texas. I'm watching all the Cowboys games. Parsons looks like defensive player of the year right now. Like he is firing off the edge. He's not playing linebacker anymore. He's lining up, going for heads. He looks fantastic. I know a lot of Niners fans don't want to hear that, but he looks great. That team is dialed in right now. Will Dak be able to continue playing good enough football for that team to win? I don't know. They played the Zach Wilson Jets and they played the Giants. So they really haven't played anybody, but the defense looks great. Let's go move it to the Giants here. Like what Giants team shows up? Most teams, there's always a team that drops out of the playoff race. There's always a team that goes above their station in 1 year and then drops out the next year. And I think that's the Giants. They really don't have anybody. They have a bunch of random slot receivers. They have Darren Waller, who's always injury bound. They have Saquon, who runs their entire offense. And the fact that you paid a $45 million quarterback to throw 15 touchdowns shows that you're a team that barely made it in the playoffs. It's always football. Every time people want to say, I saw predictions in there, 55-10, all this kind of stuff like that. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like that, but I think this game won't feel close. Whether the score ends up close, it won't feel close. I think the Niners handle themselves on Thursday night.
The Niners are the far more talented team on the field. And if it turns out any other way, then it's going to be because of the short week, because of Thursday night. Yeah, it's going to be mistakes that are made because of the way the ball bounces, right? This is football. If it's a close game and you have the one turnover that happens, you may be on the losing side of that. So any of those things could happen. It is any given Sunday, after all, any given Thursday for that matter. But I do think that, hey, you look at the Giants being in that tough division in the NFC East where they're likely to lose both games to Philly, both games to Dallas, maybe splitting with Washington. I am not looking at the Giants as a playoff team. That said, they are slightly dangerous. Some of the things they do well play to some of our weaknesses, being a mobile quarterback, leaning into the read option. I would be more worried if you had Saquon Barkley to offset that. But to your earlier point, with the speed of Matt Breida, if he gets through the middle of the defense, he might hit a home run ball out there. And so this one feels to me like it's going to be the Giants we expect, that this game will feel in hand for the 49ers, that we will be riding the high of 3-0 afterwards, and that again, it will show the better team, the deeper team. When you look at the top 35 players for the Niners, the vast majority of starters and rotational players that are going to get into this game, it is just such a wildly talented group that when I look at them matched up against what I see on paper with the Giants and what they put on film in the first 2 weeks, I just have a hard time believing that the Niners do not win this one and win it reasonably convincing, right? Again, to the point that the score may be closer as it's a Thursday night game, but that it will feel as though the better team is the Niners from the outset, and that will be clear on tape.
Agreed.
Nice. Bullpup 33 says, I can see Hargrave having a good game. I would like to see that. He has been surging off the ball.
He almost picked off that first play of the game. He almost took the handoff. Like
that
you saw.
Did
you see that?
Sick.
I don't know if you saw that, but he went for the handoff and he missed because it was a play action or whatever. But he was like, oh, so ready for it, and oh my God, that would have been great.
Amen to that. Dom pointing out Thursday night games are usually ugly. We just need to win by any means and stay injury free. Well, let's just get into that. In the chat, drop it in there. What are your predictions as Randon and I get into it? Usually I'll defer to you, but I'm going to step up to the plate first. I'm going to make the bold prediction here.
Hit that dinger, buddy. Hit that dinger.
It's Niners and Niners by a nose in this one, a big nose. I'm predicting that, hey, we hold on to this one. Christian McCaffrey does rest in the fourth quarter. Brock Purdy continues to distribute the rock. Kittle gets into the end zone. Debo gets into the end zone. I'm going to predict that we see an Elijah Mitchell touchdown just for the hell of it. And I'm taking this one, Niners winning it 33-17. So I think that we win this one handily. I know that's a lot of offensive output for a Thursday night game. I'm probably going to regret that. I regret it even as I put it out there into the ether, but I just can't help but think this offense is going to continue clicking, and this Giants team sets up to be one of those games that you beat up on the opposing team if you are that dominant. If you are the Super Bowl contender, I believe the Niners to be, I think you handle the Giants in this one.
I think it's going to be a Brock Purdy game. I think it's going to be a George Kittle game. I really think Brock Purdy takes recognition of what he happened. I think if we're going to see some seam routes up the middle against this team, I think you're looking at a nice offensive production from both those players. I think Aiyuk obviously takes a step back just because of the injury. Debo Samuel's able to carry the weight. Hopefully we see some other rushing attacks. I'm going 35. I was thinking 35-17 is what I was thinking.
Man, you are close to me. You are close to flip mode. Between the three of us, we have 35-17, 34-17, and 33-17. So when the Giants end up with 17, all three of us are going to claim victory. Flip mode coming in with that. Ian Sharp predicts 49ers 40-10, a shellacking. Martin coming in 31-7, Niners. The Gabe Stivers Show, big predictions here for the Sneakerhead here on the channel. Says Brock Purdy, 4 touchdowns to Kittle. For those touchdowns, 38-3. If you get that prediction right, I am going to ask you what numbers to bet for the lottery. Good sir. 4 touchdowns to George Kittle. I would have one of my fantasy teams blowing someone out of the water, and Randon would get crushed on the league where he's facing George Kittle. He's hoping Kittle doesn't have that game.
With all our prediction now, this game's going to be 13-10.
Exactly. Everyone's going high. Take the under. Bet the under, people. 187. Also a sneakerhead here on the channel coming in 33-10 Niners. Jacob Q coming in 42-13. We do have a lot of high scoring numbers, predictions. It is Thursday night football. Somebody coming low. No, Bullpup 33 is tripling down 42-16. No one is going on the under here. Maybe that's a good time to bet it. Just saying. Everybody feeling like the Niners should win. To that comment earlier, you do have to win the games you should win on paper. If the Niners want to be serious contenders this year, which I believe they are, I've predicted this is our year. In order to get there in January and February, home field advantage is a big deal. Beating the Giants, winning those games you should win, helps us along that path. I think we see a phenomenal game tomorrow night, and I'm thrilled that we had this chance to break it down here, Randon.
Yeah, it was always good to see you, my friend.
It is phenomenal to be seen. I appreciate everyone that reaches out when we don't have a week of shows. Apologies to the sneakerheads. I said we would have a sneakerhead call-in show last week. What I'm going to do is a post-game show tomorrow and see if anybody wants to call into that one. So look for the sneakerhead link on the YouTube page on the community tab, and I will put the call-in link. Just don't get too inebriated before you come on live with me. If there are too many F-bombs, too many inappropriate references, you may get cut off, but we will absolutely try to have that happening tomorrow. Martin says, you guys are all right. We're all right. I'm all right. You all right? Yes, we are. Thank you, Martin. That is much appreciated. Do us a favor. Hit that like button on the way out. Randon does a hockey podcast for those that enjoy hockey. The Sharks, he's a Kings fan, but hey, it is what it is. All of the information for that podcast is down below. High quality content, just like it is on this channel. Randon, you got a big trip coming up to Europe coming up. We will miss this connection, but for now, it is here. And I am thrilled to see you again next week, good sir.
I know you guys might see me dropping in from Spain or something like that.
That would be an epic drop-in show, even if we have to fight through the delays of the interwebs going international. Between Two Beards goes international would be fodder for all the Niner faithful. It'd be the talk of everyone. All the YouTubers would be talking about it.
Jealous already.
Jealous. Good night to all the faithful. Thank you for being here. Remember to like and subscribe on your way out, and we will be back next week. Until then, cheers, faithful.